Hey there, everyone. Welcome to The Healthy CEO. I am Jason Wright, co-founder and CEO of Authentic Health Partners. And today I am going to start probably a series of videos as well as podcasts on building strength. One of the things that I think gets neglected a lot in the longevity space or just the overall health and wellness is strength training. You're probably going to wish you had muscle whenever you get older. Ladies, remember, you lose muscle even faster than guys, but guys, you're not off the hook. Did you know that around the time you were 25, that's whenever you started losing muscle mass? So if you're like me and you're 51, that means if you don't maintain it and build it, you're going to lose it that much quicker. You've already lost a massive amount of your body's natural lean body mass, and you need that for overall health. Here's the reason why you need extra lean body mass. One, it helps you to continue to be insulin sensitive. Okay, you want insulin sensitivity as you grow older. Your pancreas is going to naturally weaken over time, and your body is going to adapt to the insulin that it produces. And so therefore it's going to have to produce more to do the same job unless you take steps to create insulin sensitivity. So that's one thing. Two, and probably most important, functionality. Lean body mass, strength, muscle, that is going to just help you function in life better. It's also going to help you to stay protected against bad falls. Most people, whenever they're older and they fall and they break a hip or a femur or something like that, they did it because they didn't have enough lean body mass to support them and protect them. And so therefore they're more fragile. And if you want to be resilient as you get older, you're going to have to add some lean body mass. Now, one of the strength coaches that I have watched for years is a guy named Pavel Tsatsouline, who is, I'm pretty sure he is originally from the former Soviet Union. And he's the guy that he had a whole series of videos called Enter the Kettlebell.
Comrade, enter the kettlebell. It has been weeding out weakness out of the Russian gene pool for 300 years. Now, it's your chance to get disissified.
Americans, when they walk forward, they fall forward and catch themselves. Russians, they proudly lead with their bellies. You know, the belly shows up first around the corner, then the rest of the Russian shows up. So whatever cultural reasons, Russians' backs and hip flexors are loose, and Americans are tight. And we're here to fix it. Just loosen up the shoulder girdle of yours, because you're tight, and I'll fix it. Comrade, swinging an iron bowl overhead can be dangerous to your health, and any moron should understand that. And you always must exercise good judgment. And if you don't have good judgment, why don't you stand the machines, you big sissy? And comrade, you know, if you must use those metrosexual hand creams or whatever, just use that. That's all right. I give you permission.
And the kettlebell didn't turn out just right. It goes to the junk pile of history next to communism.
Hey there, folks. I just want to remind you this episode of The Healthy CEO is brought to you, as always, by Authentic Health. Go to shopauthentic.health.com, and there you will find the foundational stack. That's F1, F2, F3, your essential nutrients, your essential fats, and your essential amino acids. And don't forget to use promo code JASON for a 10% discount. This is the stack I take every single day for more energy, for better cellular health. Those phospholipids in the essential fats are going to make sure that you have a strong cellular membrane, and then the essential nutrients are going to make sure that your mitochondrial health stays efficient and effective. Go to shopauthentic.health.com right now. Use promo code JASON. And now, back to the show. Not only is he the guy that introduced the kettlebell to physical training in America for the most part, he is also just a brilliant guy. I mean, when you listen to Pavel talk, I mean, first of all, he sounds like the type of guy that would train either a James Bond villain or James Bond himself, because he's got this cool Eastern European accent. He sounds like he would probably be training someone that was out to get James Bond. And that's just one of the things I like him. And he's also very no nonsense. And another thing, you look at this guy. This guy is incredibly strong. His advice is always get stronger. What can I do to get healthier? Get stronger. What should I do next? Get stronger. That's his answer for everything with regard to health. And if you look at him, he is not a super jacked guy at all. He's just lean, he is strong, and he is incredibly healthy. Well, he is the guy who I'm pretty sure coined this term, greasing the groove. Now, the reason why I am starting this series out on strength training with greasing the groove and Pavel Tsatsouline is because it's something everyone can do, understand, and should do. Okay? So, before we even get into the video, I just want you to know right now, I don't care who you are. I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you're male. I don't care if you're female. You should be strength training. You should be lifting heavy objects on a regular basis. But there's got to be some sort of discipline or form to it. You've got to have a strategy to it. So I thought one of the things that we would do is talk about greasing the groove and let Pavel Tsatsouline talk about why it's important, why it's sustainable, and why it's so effective. This was originally aired on an episode of the Andrew Huberman podcast. I will link to the full podcast in the show notes so that you have that, and I encourage you to go watch it. I think this is one of the most important ideas for strength training. So listen to what Pavel says, and then I'll be back at the end to wrap it up. And then I'm going to do this. Like I said, I want to do an entire series on training. I'm looking at changing some things up. I did bench press for the first time, a barbell bench press for the first time in a long, long time yesterday. And I'm just trying to figure out different ways to add strength and lean body mass. And ladies that I mentioned earlier, you don't want to bulk. I'm the same way. I'm naturally a bulky guy. I guess I'm kind of an endomorph, so I can just kind of look at weights and kind of get bulky. I will never get to have that amazing Brad Pitt Fight Club body. I mean, that's what all of us guys really are shooting for. I'm just kind of a bulkier guy. But you know what? I've kind of reached the point where I don't care. Even if I have to get a little bulkier than I want to be, I need the muscle. The older I get, the harder it's going to be to build. It's going to be harder for all of you listening to this to build. So we've got to find ways to add some new adaptations and different things into our routines to stay strong, to use different muscles. I'm using some different things, and I thought, well, while I'm researching it for myself, I bring it on here to the Healthy CEO and give you some tips, tools, and tactics for increasing your strength and lean body mass because it's so critical as we get older. So without further ado, here is Pavel Tsatsouline talking about greasing the groove.
So first I'll talk about the neural component, then we're going to talk about the frequency and the morphological adaptation, structural adaptations as it leads. So ladies and gentlemen, grease the groove, we are talking about, let's use an analogy. Let's imagine that you are a bow hunter and you work in your garage. And then you walk out of your garage and you shoot an arrow. And you just go back to going about your business, just working in your garage. Or let's say you're a kid who practices martial arts, and on every break between classes, you just go in the corner and you practice your kata. This is the best way to practice your skill in small portions in a spaced out manner. What's really fascinating is traditional education and traditional strength training. It's based on the cramming model. So remember cramming for an exam. So you're studying at night and you somehow squeak by and you pass it. Okay, great. And then a couple of days later, you happily forget everything. So in contrast, imagine that let's say you're studying a foreign language. You write words on cards, and at every opportunity, you're standing in line in the bank. So the lesser mortals are fooling around on their phones. You're just going through your deck. Like, oh, can I translate this word? I go, put it back in the deck, flip it over. Then next time you're in some other place, you do this again. So this is an example of space practice versus the traditional mass practice. And the evidence of the superiority of space practice is just overwhelming. It goes back to the 19th century, and there's at least more than 1,000 papers published on that. And still very few people do that, which is really sad. And strength is a skill. So two interesting things happened in the 50s. One is Thomas Rush. He was an American exercise physiologist. He proposed that strength adaptation was largely skill.
And he looked at pretty much the adaptations. He noticed that there's no correlation between the muscle growth and strength. Then at the same time, a Soviet scientist, Stepanov was his last name, he was measuring the electrical activity in the muscles of weightlifters who were pressing overhead. And back then, the press was one of the competition events. And what he found is, as the athletes got stronger after some months, the EMGs started dropping off when they're lifting the same weights. So pretty much he found out that the nervous system activity became more economical. They were able to try less hard, yet still lift the same weights. Or pretty much they could try harder and lift even heavier weights. And hypertrophy could not explain that, because in the 50s, the Soviets were very anti-hypertrophy. They were just doing doubles, triples, singles pretty much. So if we look at what's going on, it's the Hebbian mechanisms. So pretty much every time that you activate a particular connection, synaptic connection, between the neurons, that connection becomes stronger. So if you do it over and over and over. So the grease the groove is the analogy is that command that's coming in from your brain to your muscles, that's the groove. That's that pathway. And the more you use it, pretty much the more greased it becomes. So it's like becomes a superconductor. So in the future, you don't have to try as hard to lift the same amount of weight, or you can try the same amount and you can lift harder. So we haven't even addressed the neural drive yet. We just pretty much made the motor neurons more responsive to it. And it's a very easy and very simple way to train. And strength comes very easily and very, very unexpectedly. To make sure that it does happen, you have to address the issue of specificity. So specificity pretty much means, without getting too much into the weeds, to get stronger, first of all, you need to lift weights that are heavy enough. And if you're looking about percentages of 1 rep max, we're looking at like 75 to 85 typically. If you go too light, you don't make the impression on your nervous system, and it's just not specific enough. If you go too heavy, very quickly, you're just going to burn yourself out. And so pretty much like it's a weight that's heavy enough to respect and light enough not to fear. And the second of all, and this is very surprising, is you only do about half or fewer reps that you possibly could do. So for example, let's say that you're lifting 80% of your 1 rep max. And let's say that you're able to do 8 reps maximum with it. We're just fairly common. Well, you're only going to do about 3 to 4 reps per set, and that's it. And the gym bros at this point go crazy, like, where's the intensity? Well, intensity in strength training is just how heavy the weight is. It has nothing to do with the effort. And it's been proven over and over that that's much more important than how hard you're exerting yourself. There are times for that. There are absolutely times for that. But if the weight is heavy enough, and if you do half the repetitions that you possibly could do, you're going to get stronger. It's very safe, and you're not going to burn out psychologically, and it's also very easy on your body. So also that builds muscle as well, purely because you're able to do a very high volume of work. I'm not able to explain the mechanism, why it builds muscle, but as the Soviets found out in weightlifting research, there's a correlation between the volume and Robert Roman, between the volume and the hypertrophy, everything else being equal, you're going to get bigger. So almost every day you're doing the sets of 3, 4 reps, maybe even 5, and they start adding up. And before you know it, you're stronger, and at the same time you have developed muscle. So to summarize the grease the groove, you're trying to train moderately heavy as often as possible while staying as fresh as possible. And if you decide to do it in the gym, a very simple protocol would be a set every 10 minutes. It sounds really bizarre. Like, why? Why would you rest for so long? This apparently has to do with initial memory consolidation. There's so much is still unknown. So we do know the grease the groove works great, but we speculate that some of it has to do with some of the same phenomena related to learning in other fields. So if you're doing something over and over, like you're saying 2 + 2 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4, you're just using your short-term memory. You're not memorizing anything. But if you say 2 plus 2 is 4, you go get a coffee, you come back and you try 2 plus 2, 4. So there's that desirable difficulty that you have in there, and you have to process that instead of just go through the groove. That apparently helps this adaptation. So rest for at least 10 minutes. Do sets of about the repetitions of half of what you're possibly able to do. And, listen to your body. Typically train 2-3 days in a row and then take a day off, but listen to your body. Incidentally, this Grease the Groove is the topic of my next book. I have completed it. It's not published yet. If you look at, I can't pronounce the Hungarian professor's last name.
Csikszentmihalyi.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So he's talking about that perfect challenge, perfect practice lies in that channel between boredom and anxiety. So if you put yourself in that channel, and if you keep lifting this moderately heavy weights with a moderate effort over and over and over, you're going to get strong. That's one of the many ways to get stronger.
Are you doing anything in the rest periods between these 10 minutes? So is it, let's say, bench press, wait 10 minutes till you bench press again, but in the meantime, you're doing Zercher squat 5 minutes after the first bench press?
That's one of the ways to do that. You can do up to 3 exercises at the same time. So let's say like Zercher squat and the bench press and maybe a third thing, but I'd say those 2 are enough. And another option is you can do that. You can incorporate this into, if you do only one exercise, you can squeeze it into your lifestyle or your athletic practice. So for example, let's say you're teaching a track practice or martial arts class, and every 10 minutes on the clock, you just have the class drop and do 3 hard, let's say 3 one-arm push-ups, okay, and then get back to the class. So there's no interference whatsoever. In fact, it's better than no interference. Back in the 60s, Soviets found out something called the strength after effect. So if you do strength work that's not exhausting in nature and that's not novel to you, it has a tonic effect just for anything that you can do with your brain or with your body, anything. So what they would even do, some coaches do so-called strength warm-up. They would warm up as usual for a track class, let's say, track practice. Then they would do, let's say, 3 sets of 3 or something like with 80% max, which is not much. And they start their practice. Then the coach noticed that the athletes are starting to droop a little. He'll repeat that, and he might repeat that up to 3 times. So what you have is by having this short, very small dose, like a nano practice of strength, you rejuvenate yourself and your productivity increases so much. So whether you want to just do the strength exercise, several of them in that 1 hour period, or whether you want to combine that with writing a great American novel, that's your business.
I suppose if someone has access to the appropriate equipment at home, you could incorporate Grease the Groove into your entire day.
That's ideal, yes. Yeah. And obviously it's difficult with some equipment, but what you could do, you could use the heavy-duty grippers. You could do one-arm push-ups. You could keep a kettlebell under your desk and press it at every opportunity. And again, the idea is really just practice. You just try to hit a perfect trap. And notice that if you have some issues, if you're a warm-up dependent person for orthopedic issues, I'm talking about warm-up very much in the body, not the mind in this particular case, then it might not be appropriate for you. Although, with 10-minute rest, it might still be okay. But practicing a skill without the warm-up, that means rehearsal, is very powerful for improving that skill. People think they automatically equate performance with improvement, with learning, but it's not so, not at all. When you're doing something that's just out of the blue, it's, the way a sniper would take a cold shot. That's so much harder because you have to have produced that solution. Or maybe an example that's closer to most viewers, golf. You go to the driving range, you start hitting it, and wow, you're amazing. You just get yourself fine-tuned, you hit, you're perfect. Then you go and you play the game, and you cannot replicate that. Because suddenly, different club, different topography, everything's different. And you didn't have the luxury of that tuning yourself up right there. So it doesn't feel like you're stronger, but you are going to get much stronger.
And that's exactly what I want you to do. Get much stronger. I'm Jason. I'm the Healthy CEO. I'm out.
The content provided in this podcast, The Healthy CEO, is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Healthy CEO. Any information provided by our hosts or guests, including any physicians who may appear on the podcast, is solely for informational purposes and does not create any doctor-patient relationship. Listeners are advised to consult with their healthcare providers before making any changes to their health routines. The Healthy CEO and its affiliates assume no responsibility or liability for any consequence resulting directly or indirectly from any action or inaction you take based on the information provided in this podcast.